The Mother's Day brunch spread before me was picture perfect. Fresh mimosas, eggs Benedict, and a bouquet of peonies that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery bill. My mother-in-law Reagan had outdone herself, as usual, but the envelope sitting next to my plate made my stomach turn. I'm Natalie, and this was the moment my husband and his mother decided to serve me divorce papers alongside my French toast. We thought it would be best to do this privately, Stuart said, his perfectly manicured hand gesturing toward the envelope. As a family. I picked up my mimosa, buying time as I studied their faces. Stuart's practiced concern, Reagan's barely concealed satisfaction. 6 months ago, this scene would have destroyed me. Now I felt nothing but cold amusement. On Mother's Day? I asked, my voice steady. That's an interesting choice. Reagan leaned forward, her designer bracelet clinking against the marble table. Darling, we know this is difficult, but Stuart needs to move forward with his life. You understand, don't you? I understood perfectly. I understood the late-night phone calls Stuart thought I didn't know about. I understood the offshore accounts they believed were untraceable. I understood exactly how long they'd been planning this. Of course, I smiled, reaching for the envelope. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Stuart shifted uncomfortably. The terms are very generous, Natalie. The house in the Hamptons, a substantial settlement. The house you mortgaged last month? I interrupted, watching his face pale slightly. Or did you mean the one that's currently under investigation for tax fraud? The mimosa glass in Reagan's hand froze halfway to her mouth. I'm sorry, what did you just say? I pulled out my phone, sending a quick text to Viviana. It's happening. Start phase 2. Then I looked up at their increasingly worried faces. You know what's funny about Mother's Day? I mused, carefully unfolding the divorce papers. It makes you think about family, legacy, the future. I paused, letting my words sink in. Like that trust fund you set up for Stuart when he was born, Reagan. The one you've been using as collateral for those risky investments. Stuart's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. What are you talking about? I gently removed his hand, remembering all the times I'd flinched from his touch before. Not anymore. You really should have paid more attention to those documents I was filing for you all these years. Being the dutiful wife had its advantages. You had no right, Reagan started, her voice shrill. I had every right, I cut her off. Just like you had every right to plan this ambush, just like Stuart had every right to sleep with his secretary while I was undergoing fertility treatments. We all make choices, don't we? The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, birds chirped in the garden Reagan had spent a fortune maintaining. Inside, her perfect Mother's Day brunch was crumbling faster than the scones on our plates. Whatever you think you've done, Stuart began, his lawyer voice emerging, we can fix it. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Like you fixed our marriage? Or like you fixed those investment reports for the SEC? I picked up my purse, feeling lighter than I had in years. Check your phones. On cue, both their phones buzzed. I watched as they read the messages, their faces draining of colour. Somewhere across town, Callie was working her magic, executing the final steps of our plan. You'll regret this, Reagan hissed, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. I walked to the door, then turned back for one final look. No, I won't. But you will. Happy Mother's Day, Reagan. I hope it was everything you wished for. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a message from Viviana. Done. They won't know what hit them until it's too late. I smiled, starting the engine. They thought they were so clever, planning to blindside me on Mother's Day. They never suspected I'd been 3 steps ahead of them for months. While they plotted my exit, I'd been quietly orchestrating theirs. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd chosen Mother's Day to end things, not knowing they'd given me the perfect opportunity to launch my counterattack. As I drove away from Reagan's pristine mansion, I thought about how fitting it was. They wanted to make this about family. Fine. They were about to learn that family ties could strangle as easily as they could support. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Harley, a name I hadn't seen on my screen in years. Heard you might need a friend. Coffee tomorrow? Perfect timing, as always. because while Stuart and Reagan's world was about to implode, mine was just beginning to expand. And this was only the first course of the feast I'd prepared for them. The coffee shop buzzed with Monday morning energy as I sat across from Harley, watching his face change while I recounted the previous day's events. His beard was new, but his eyes still held that same warmth I remembered from college. "So let me get this straight," he said, leaning forward. "They tried to ambush you with divorce papers on Mother's Day, not knowing you'd already dismantled their financial empire." I stirred my latte, remembering the look on Stuart's face. They thought I was just the trophy wife who handled his paperwork. Funny how people see what they want to see. "When did you first realize something was wrong?" "Remember those fertility treatments I mentioned?" I took a sip of coffee. "I found receipts for jewelry I never received while I was still injecting hormones into my stomach. Then came the late-night business meetings and deleted text messages." Harley's hand tightened around his cup. "What a piece of work." "Oh, it gets better," I said. "Last Christmas, Reagan gave me this condescending speech about how some women just aren't meant to be mothers." 2 days later, I overheard her on the phone with Stuart's lawyer, planning the divorce strategy. "That's when you started planning?" I nodded. "I called Viviana that night. She connected me with Callie, who knows more about digital forensics than any lawyer I've met. We found everything. The affairs, the hidden accounts, the fraudulent investments." My phone buzzed. A message from Viviana. "Stuart just tried to access the offshore account. Should see the fireworks any minute now." Right on cue, my phone started ringing, Stuart's number flashing on the screen. I showed it to Harley before declining the call. "Aren't you going to answer it?" "No need. He's discovering that his emergency funds aren't quite where he left them." I smiled. "Amazing what you can do with the right passwords and a power of attorney." "Natalie?" Harley hesitated. "I'm all for justice, but are you sure about this? It sounds like you're walking a fine line." "Everything I did was legal," I assured him. "Stuart gave me access to everything while he was busy with his distractions. I just moved things around a bit. Invested in some high-risk ventures he'd approved months ago. Changed some passwords he really should have updated." My phone buzzed again. Reagan this time. I sent it to voicemail. "Besides," I continued, "they're the ones who committed fraud. I just made sure there's a paper trail leading right to them." Harley whistled low. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "You know what the worst part was?" I said, surprising myself with the emotion in my voice. "Last month, when I was setting everything in motion, Stuart actually bought me flowers. Said he was sorry for being distant. Promised we'd try again for a baby soon. He looked me right in the eyes and lied, knowing he was planning to serve me divorce papers." "Jesus," Harley muttered. My phone lit up with a text from Callie. "The bank just froze their accounts. Fraud investigation officially launched." "That's my cue," I said, standing up. "I should head to the lawyer's office. Things are about to get interesting." Harley stood too, hesitating before speaking. "Listen, I know this is terrible timing, but would you want to have dinner sometime? Just as friends," he added quickly. "Sounds like you could use one right now." I looked at him, really looked at him. Harley had always been the decent one, the one who'd tell you the truth even when it hurt. The opposite of everything Stuart had turned out to be. "I'd like that," I said. "But fair warning, I'm about to become the talk of the town. Stuart's not going to go down quietly." "I can handle some drama," he smiled. "Besides, sounds like you've got all the power in this situation." Another call from Stuart lit up my phone. This time I answered. "Where is it?" he demanded, panic clear in his voice. "What did you do with the money?" "I invested it," I said calmly, watching Harley's eyes widen. "Just like you always wanted me to." "Oh, and Stuart, you might want to call your mother. The bank's looking for both of you." I hung up, feeling Harley's gaze on me. "Still want to have that dinner?" I asked. He grinned. "More than ever. Anyone who can make that man sound scared is someone I want to know better." As we walked out of the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a message from Viviana. "Reagan's at the bank having a meltdown. Want to grab lunch and watch the show?" I texted back quickly, "Save me a seat. This is just the beginning." Looking up, I caught Harley watching me with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Maybe a little," I admitted. but they started this war. I'm just making sure I finish it. Viviana's downtown loft had become our unofficial war room. She sat cross-legged on her leather couch, laptop balanced on her knees, while Callie paced behind her, rattling off updates. The SEC is definitely interested now, Callie said, her fingers flying over her phone. Those creative investment reports Stuart filed last quarter, they're finding all sorts of irregularities. Show her the email, Viviana urged, turning her laptop toward me. I leaned forward, reading the panicked message from Lucia, Stuart's business partner. What the hell is going on? The auditors are everywhere. Stuart isn't answering his phone. Please tell me we're not in trouble. Poor Lucia, I mused. She actually thought Stuart was honest with her. Speaking of honest, Callie stopped pacing. Your mother-in-law tried to access her private account in the Caymans this morning, the one she thought nobody knew about. And? Let's just say the balance isn't quite what she remembered, Callie smirked. Amazing how quickly money can disappear when it's invested in non-existent companies. My phone buzzed. Another message from Stuart. We need to talk, please. I can explain everything. He's been calling all morning, I told them, declining the call. Reagan too. They're getting desperate. Viviana closed her laptop. Are you ready for phase 3? Once we release those emails to the board. Do it, I nodded. They deserve to know what kind of man they made CEO. Callie's phone chimed. Her eyes widened. Oh, this is good. Stuart just tried to book a flight to Buenos Aires. First class. One way. Running already? Viviana laughed. That was faster than we expected. He won't get far, I said. The FBI flag on his passport should be active by now. The doorbell rang, making us all jump. Viviana checked her security camera and grinned. Look who finally got our location. Reagan's face appeared on the screen, her usually perfect makeup slightly smeared. She was pressing the buzzer repeatedly. Natalie! Her voice crackled through the intercom. I know you're in there. We need to talk. I walked to the window, peering down at the street. Stuart was there too, pacing beside his Mercedes, running his hands through his hair. Should we let them stew a bit longer? Viviana asked. No, I decided. It's time they understood exactly what they're dealing with. I pressed the intercom. Come on up, Reagan. Bring Stuart too. Let's have that family meeting you're so fond of. Minutes later, they burst into the apartment. Stuart looked like he hadn't slept, his designer suit wrinkled. Reagan's hands were shaking. What have you done? She demanded. Do you have any idea what you've started? I learned from the best, I replied calmly. Isn't this what you taught Stuart? Take what you want, consequences be damned. The board is asking questions. Stuart cut in. Serious questions. About everything. They're talking about a formal investigation. How unfortunate, I said. Almost as unfortunate as serving your wife divorce papers on Mother's Day while she's still grieving failed IVF treatments. Reagan stepped forward. We can fix this. Whatever you want, money, the house, anything. Just stop whatever you're doing. That's the problem, I said. You still think this is a negotiation. It's not. It's consequences. Callie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. The board just called an emergency meeting. Apparently, someone sent them some very interesting emails about certain creative accounting practices. Stuart's face went ash white. You didn't. Actually, I did. And that's just the beginning. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, the fraudulent investments, it's all coming out now. You'll go down with us, Reagan threatened. You were involved in everything. Was I? I picked up a folder from the coffee table. Because according to these documents, I was just following orders, documenting everything carefully. Every signature, every instruction, every transfer, all authorized by you two. Stuart lunged for the folder, but Viviana was faster, stepping between us. Don't, she warned. Copies are already with the authorities. Why? Stuart's voice cracked. Why do this? Because you thought I was stupid, I said simply. Because you thought I was weak. Because you thought you could discard me like I meant nothing. How does it feel to be on the other side? Reagan grabbed her son's arm. We're leaving. Our lawyers will be in touch. Good luck finding ones who'll work for free, Callie called after them, since your accounts are frozen. After they left, Viviana poured us all wine. That went well. Too well, Callie said. They'll try something else. Let them, I replied, taking a sip. Everything they try will just dig their hole deeper. My phone lit up with a text from Harley. Still on for dinner tonight? Looking at my friends, then at my phone, I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt truly powerful. Ladies, I believe I have a date to prepare for. The restaurant Harley chose was nothing like the pretentious places Stuart preferred. String lights twinkled above the outdoor patio, and the smell of authentic Italian food wafted through the air. I was halfway through explaining the financial web I'd woven when Callie's urgent text arrived. Turn on the news. Now. I pulled out my phone and Harley moved his chair closer to watch. The local news was running a breaking story about Stuart's company, complete with footage of FBI agents walking through the corporate headquarters. Sources say the investigation involves allegations of widespread fraud, the reporter announced. CEO Stuart Bailey and several board members are being questioned. Holy shit, Harley whispered. That's happening right now? Before I could answer, my phone exploded with notifications. Lucia was calling. I put it on speaker. Natalie. Her voice was shaking. They're saying Stuart used company funds for personal investments. Tell me you didn't know about this. Lucia, remember when you asked me to review those investment reports last year? The ones Stuart said were routine? Oh, God, she breathed. The signatures, the transfers. It was all him. Check your email, I said. I sent you everything you'll need to protect yourself. Show it to the investigators. After hanging up, I looked at Harley. Still want to have dinner with the woman who just helped take down a Fortune 500 CEO? He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. More than ever. But maybe we should order some wine first. The waiter had just brought our bottles when Viviana called. Reagan just tried to access her safety deposit box, she reported. The one with all the jewelry. Let me guess. Empty. Better. The bank manager called the police when she started screaming about theft. Turns out some of those pieces were purchased with embezzled funds. I couldn't help but smile. How's that karma tasting, Reagan? There's more, Viviana continued. Stuart's secretary finally talked. She told the board everything about their affair, including the trips they took using company money. Harley whistled low. You really thought of everything, didn't you? I had 8 months to plan while they thought I was just their obedient little puppet, I said, taking a sip of wine. Amazing what you can accomplish when people underestimate you. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Stuart's face filled the screen as he was led out of his office building, his perfect suit wrinkled, his hands behind his back. I should feel bad about this, I mused, watching the footage. But all I can think about is how he looked at me across that Mother's Day brunch table, so smug, so sure of himself. You're not responsible for his choices, Harley said firmly. He did this to himself. Another text from Callie. Reagan's being detained for questioning. Something about tax evasion and hidden assets. Want me to send you the security footage from the bank? Save it for later, I texted back. I'm actually having a nice evening for once. Looking up, I caught Harley studying me. What? You're different from college, he said, stronger. But you haven't lost your heart. That's rare. Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the restaurant's ambient noise. You vindictive bitch! Reagan stood at the patio entrance, mascara streaking down her face. Several diners turned to stare. Is this what you wanted? She shouted. To destroy everything we built? I set down my wineglass carefully. You mean everything you stole? Everything you lied about? Please, Reagan, tell me more about what you built. My son is facing criminal charges because of you. Your son is facing criminal charges because he committed crimes, I corrected. I just made sure people noticed. Harley stood up, positioning himself between us. Ma'am, I think you should leave. Stay out of this, Reagan snapped. This is family business. No, I said, standing too. This stopped being family business when you and Stuart decided to ambush me on Mother's Day. Now it's justice. The restaurant manager appeared, security guard in tow. Is there a problem here? No problem, I smiled. Mrs. Bailey was just leaving. I believe the police are waiting to continue their conversation with her. Reagan's face contorted, but the security guard's presence convinced her to back down. As she was escorted out, she turned back one last time. "This isn't over," she threatened. "Actually, it is," I called after her. "Check your phone. The trust fund documents just went public." Turning back to Harley, I found him trying not to laugh. "I'm so sorry about this." "Are you kidding? This is the best first date I've ever had." He raised his wine glass. "To Karma." I clinked my glass against his, watching Reagan's retreat through the window. To Karma. And to new beginnings. My phone lit up with another news alert, but this time I ignored it. Stuart and Reagan's world was imploding exactly as planned, but right now I had better things to focus on. The morning headlines screamed across every news channel, CEO arrested in massive fraud scheme. I sat in my lawyer's office watching Stuart's perp walk replay on loop while his attorney squirmed in his expensive chair. "My client is willing to be generous," the attorney said, sliding a document across the desk, "in exchange for your cooperation with his defense." I picked up the paper, making a show of reading it slowly. $5 million to say I acted alone? That's what Stuart thinks I'm worth now? 10 million, the attorney corrected. Plus the house in the Hamptons. My lawyer, Diana, barely contained her smirk. "I think what my client means is, go to hell." My phone buzzed. Lucia was calling again. I excused myself to take it. "The board voted," she said without preamble. "Stuart's out. They're naming me interim CEO. "Congratulations," I said. "How's the damage control going?" "Better now that we've found all the hidden accounts. The SEC is being surprisingly understanding given our cooperation." She paused. "Thank you, Natalie, for warning me before it all exploded." Back in the office, Stuart's attorney was getting desperate. "Think about your future, Mrs. Bailey. This offer won't last forever." "Neither did my marriage," I replied, sitting down. But unlike Stuart, I planned for that. Diana pulled out another folder. "Now, about those offshore accounts my client discovered." The attorney's face paled. "What offshore accounts?" "The ones Reagan set up in the Cayman Islands," I said sweetly. "The ones she's been using to hide money from the IRS for, about 20 years now?" My phone lit up with a text from Callie. "Reagan just got picked up by the FBI. Want to watch the live stream?" "If you'll excuse me," Stuart's attorney gathered his papers hastily. "I need to consult with my client." After he left, Diana turned to me. "You really aren't going to take the deal." "Why would I? I have everything I need." I showed her my phone, where another text from Harley had appeared. "Dinner tonight. Promise no angry mothers-in-law this time." A commotion in the hallway drew our attention. Reagan's voice carried through the door. "I demand to see her. She can't hide in there forever." Diana raised an eyebrow. "Should I call security?" "No need," I said, opening the door. "Come on in, Reagan. Let's talk about those jewelry pieces you reported stolen." Reagan stormed in, followed by her own harried-looking attorney. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, her hair unkempt. "You think you're so clever," she spat, "turning everyone against us, making us look like criminals." "You made yourselves look like criminals," I corrected. "I just showed people where to look." "Stuart is in jail because of you." "Stuart is in jail because he committed fraud. The fact that it happened right after you both tried to blindside me, that's just, what did you call it? Karma?" Reagan's attorney stepped forward. "Mrs. Bailey, we're prepared to offer—" "Save it," I cut him off. "I'm not interested in deals. I'm interested in justice." "Justice?" Reagan laughed hysterically. "You call this justice? Destroying our family?" "Family?" I stood up, feeling years of anger finally surface. "You want to talk about family? How about when you convinced Stuart to delay having children because it would hurt his image? Or when you told him to serve me divorce papers on Mother's Day because it would show strength? I was protecting my son. You were protecting your lifestyle," I corrected. "And now you've lost both." My phone buzzed again. Viviana this time. "Turn on the news. They found Reagan's secret vault." I held up my phone, showing Reagan the breaking news. Her face went ashen. That's private property," she stammered. "Was private property," I corrected. "Now it's evidence." Her attorney grabbed her arm. "Mrs. Bailey, we need to leave. Now." As they hurried out, Diana turned to me. You know they'll keep trying to make deals. Let them try, I said, gathering my things. I didn't do this for money. I did it because they needed to learn that actions have consequences. My phone lit up with another message from Harley. Just saw the news. You okay? I smiled, typing back. Better than okay. Finally free. Walking out of the office, I passed the wall of TVs in the lobby, all showing Stuart's arrest and Reagan's meltdown at the bank. A year ago, I would have been devastated by all this. Now, watching their carefully constructed world crumble, I felt nothing but peace. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Stuart's number. Please, I'm sorry, I'll do anything. I deleted it without responding. He'd had his chance to do the right thing. Now he could live with the consequences, just like he'd planned for me to do. Harley's beach house was exactly what I needed. Simple, peaceful, and far from the media circus my life had become. We sat on his deck watching the sunset while my phone continuously buzzed with updates about Stuart's case. Your story's trending again, he said, glancing at his own phone. They're calling you the corporate revenge queen. Lovely, I muttered, taking a sip of wine. Just what I always wanted to be famous for. My phone rang, Viviana's ringtone. You need to see this, she said when I answered. Stuart's giving a press conference from jail. I pulled up the live stream. Stuart stood in an orange jumpsuit, looking nothing like the polished CEO he'd once been. My wife, he was saying, his voice breaking perfectly on cue. She's not well. The stress of our fertility treatments affected her judgment. She misunderstood normal business practices. Oh, hell no. I cut the stream off. He's not pinning this on me. He's desperate, Harley said. The evidence is overwhelming. My phone exploded with text from Callie. Don't worry. Just leaked the emails proving he ordered every transaction, plus some choice messages to his secretary. His credibility is shot. The deck door slid open and Lucia stepped out, holding a fresh bottle of wine. She'd driven down to escape the press, too. The board's releasing a statement, she said, showing us her tablet. Full support for the investigation, zero tolerance for fraud, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and they're making my position permanent. Congratulations, I raised my glass. First female CEO. That must be killing Stuart. Speaking of killing, Lucia sat down. Reagan tried to access the company jet. Apparently, she was planning a spontaneous vacation to a non-extradition country. How'd that work out for her? Harley asked. About as well as you'd expect. FBI picked her up at the airport. My phone buzzed again. Diana this time. Stuart's attorney called. They're doubling the offer. 20 million now. Still not interested, I texted back. You know, Lucia mused, for someone who just orchestrated the biggest corporate takedown of the year, you seem remarkably calm. Because it's over, I said. They can offer all the money they want. They can try to spin it however they like. The truth is already out there. Harley's hand found mine under the table. What's next for the corporate revenge queen? Before I could answer, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Reagan stepped out, looking nothing like her usual polished self. You've got to be kidding me, Harley stood up. How did she find us? Probably followed me, Lucia admitted. She's been hanging around the office. I squeezed Harley's hand. It's okay. Let her come up. This needs to end. Reagan climbed the deck stairs, clutching her designer bag like a shield. Natalie, please. 5 minutes. Your son already tried to blame me for his crimes, I said. What's your angle? No angle. She looked close to tears. I'm here to beg. Stuart's facing 20 years. 20 years, Natalie. He's my only child. Should have thought about that before you helped him commit fraud. We can fix this, she pleaded, together, as a family. Family? I laughed. You served me divorce papers on Mother's Day, while I was still recovering from failed IVF. That's not family, Reagan. That's cruelty. I was wrong, she whispered. We were wrong, please. The time for pleading was before you tried to destroy me, I said. Now it's too late. My phone lit up with breaking news. CEO's mother charged with tax evasion, money laundering. I held up the phone so she could see. Your car's being watched, by the way. FBI's probably already on their way. As if on cue, 2 black SUVs pulled up behind her car. "You could have had everything," Reagan said, her voice breaking. "We would have given you anything." "That's the difference between us," I replied. "I never wanted your things. I wanted respect. And now I have it." The FBI agents were climbing the stairs now. Reagan straightened her shoulders, trying to salvage some dignity. "Mrs. Bailey," one agent said, "you need to come with us." As they led her away, Lucia raised her glass. "To karma." "To new beginnings," Harley added, pulling me closer. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Stuart. "I understand now. I'm sorry. For everything." I deleted it without responding and turned my phone off. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. "So," Harley said softly, "about that what's next question." I smiled, leaning into him. The future was wide open, and for once I was exactly where I wanted to be. The courthouse buzzed with energy as I took my seat in the witness stand. Stuart sat at the defense table, his expensive suit hanging loose on his frame, while Reagan watched from the gallery, her face drawn and pale. "Mrs. Bailey," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about the morning of May 14th. "Mother's Day," I said, my voice clear and steady. "My husband and mother-in-law served me divorce papers over brunch." And what happened next? I revealed that I knew about their fraudulent activities, the offshore accounts, the embezzlement, the tax evasion. Stuart's attorney jumped up. "Objection, speculation." "Overruled," the judge said. "Continue." I detailed everything. The paper trail, the hidden accounts, the carefully documented evidence of their crimes. Stuart wouldn't meet my eyes, but Reagan stared at me with undisguised hatred. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket, probably Harley, who'd promised to wait outside. The prosecutor held up a document. "Can you identify this email?" "Yes," I said. "Stuart sent it to me last year, instructing me to transfer company funds to a shell corporation." "And did you comply?" "I documented everything and reported it to the SEC." Stuart's attorney stood again. "Your Honor, my client maintains that his wife acted without his knowledge." "Really?" I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "Should we play the voicemail where you specifically instructed me how to hide the transfers?" The courtroom erupted in whispers. Stuart's face went white. "I have it right here," I continued, "along with recordings of every conversation where you and Reagan planned this whole thing." The judge called for order as Stuart leaned over to his attorney, speaking urgently. The prosecutor smiled. "No further questions, Your Honor. During the recess, Viviana and Callie found me in the hallway." "You should see Twitter," Callie grinned, showing me her phone. "A corporate revenge queen is trending worldwide." "The press is having a field day," Viviana added. "They're calling it the perfect karma story." Lucia appeared, looking official in her CEO attire. "Board meeting just ended. We're officially cutting all ties with Stuart and implementing new anti-fraud measures." "Speaking of Stuart," Callie nodded toward the end of the hall, "incoming." Stuart approached, flanked by his attorney. He looked older, defeated. "Natalie," he said softly, "can we talk?" "Everything I have to say to you I said on the stand." "Please," he stepped closer. "What we did, what I did, I know now how wrong it was." "Wrong?" I laughed. "You tried to destroy me on Mother's Day, after everything we went through with the IVF treatments, after all the lies, the affairs, the manipulation." "I'll plead guilty," he offered. "Take full responsibility. Just help my mother. She doesn't deserve prison." "Like I didn't deserve what you both did to me." I shook my head. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about justice." His attorney pulled him away as Reagan approached, her designer outfit replaced by something more subdued. "I raised him better than this," she said quietly. "No," I corrected her. "You raised him to think he could take whatever he wanted. Consequences be damned. Well, these are the consequences." The bailiff called us back into court. As we filed in, my phone lit up with a message from Harley. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." The judge cleared his throat. Before we continue, I understand the defense has an announcement. Stewart's attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client wishes to change his plea to guilty. The courtroom exploded in chaos. Reagan let out a sob. I sat perfectly still watching as Stewart signed the plea agreement. The defendant will be remanded into custody pending sentencing, the judge announced. As for Mrs. Bailey Sr., given the evidence presented, Reagan stood shaking as the judge ordered her immediate arrest. As the bailiffs approached her, she turned to me one last time. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've destroyed everything. No, I replied calmly. You did that yourselves. I just made sure everyone saw the truth. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed shouting questions. Harley appeared at my side, taking my hand. Ready to face the cameras? He asked. Actually, I smiled, I have something better in mind. I turned to Lucia. Remember that women's shelter we discussed? She nodded. The one you wanted to fund with your settlement money. Let's announce it now. Show everyone that this was never about revenge. It was about turning something ugly into something beautiful. As we stepped toward the microphones, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Stewart. You won. I hope it was worth it. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I faced the cameras and began to speak about new beginnings, about turning pain into purpose. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't just winning, it was thriving. The women's shelter gleamed in the morning sun, its newly renovated facade a testament to second chances. As I cut the ribbon at the grand opening, camera flashes caught the moment that transformed my revenge into something meaningful. The Phoenix House, I announced to the gathered crowd, because everyone deserves a chance to rise from the ashes. Harley squeezed my hand as reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Bailey, any comment on your ex-husband's sentencing? Is it true your former mother-in-law is seeking a plea deal? I stepped up to the microphone. Today isn't about them. It's about turning pain into purpose. Every woman who walks through these doors will find what I eventually found, strength, support, and a path forward. Lucia appeared at my side, elegant in her CEO attire. The company's charitable foundation is proud to announce a permanent endowment for Phoenix House, ensuring its services will continue indefinitely. My phone buzzed. A message from the prison warden. I'd been avoiding this moment, but it was time. Go, Harley whispered. I'll handle things here. The prison visiting room was cold and sterile. Stewart sat behind the glass, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. I picked up the phone. You look well, he said. You don't. I saw the shelter opening on TV. He paused. It's good. What you're doing. Is that why you asked me here? To approve of my choices? No. He pressed his hand against the glass. I asked you here because I finally understand what we did to you. What I did. It wasn't just cruel. It was cowardly. Save the epiphany, I said. You had years, to be honest. I know. But watching you turn everything around, helping others instead of destroying them like I would have. He shook his head. You're stronger than I ever was. My phone lit up with a text from Viviana. Reagan took the plea deal. 5 years, minimum security. Your mother's going to prison, I told him. She finally ran out of schemes. Good, he said, surprising me. Maybe she'll learn something, like I am. Are you? Learning something? Yeah, he smiled sadly. I'm learning that karma isn't just about punishment. It's about balance. You could have destroyed everything, but instead you built something new, something better. The guard signaled time was almost up. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Stewart said quickly. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you won in the best possible way. I stood up. Goodbye, Stewart. Outside, Harley waited in the car. You okay? Better than okay, I said, showing him my phone. Callie had sent a photo of the first family moving into Phoenix House, a mother and daughter escaping their own story of betrayal. Back at the shelter, Viviana and Callie were organising the donation room. The support's been overwhelming, Viviana reported. Companies keep calling, wanting to help. Speaking of help, Callie grinned, guess who's been trying to donate anonymously? Reagan's sister. Apparently, she's mortified by the whole scandal. Accept it, I decided. This place is about breaking cycles, not perpetuating them. My phone rang. Lucia again. Board meeting just ended. They want to expand Phoenix House nationwide. Your stories inspired people, Natalie. They want to be part of the change. Harley pulled me aside as the others discussed expansion plans. Remember our first date? When you said this was about justice? I remember. You were wrong, he smiled. It was about transformation. Look around, you didn't just get justice, you created hope. A commotion at the front desk caught our attention. A woman stood there, clutching a small suitcase, her eye badly bruised. I saw the story on the news, she said quietly. About rising from the ashes. I walked over, taking her hand. Welcome to Phoenix House. Let's talk about your fresh start. My phone buzzed one final time, a news alert about Stuart's case. I deleted it without reading. The past was finished. The future was walking through our doors. Ready to change another life? Harley asked. I looked around at the shelter, at my friends, at the woman seeking refuge, and finally at Harley, my unexpected second chance at love. You know what? I smiled. I think I'm ready to change them all. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't just about winning or even thriving. It was about taking the worst moment of your life and using it to create someone else's best moment. That's not karma. That's transformation. And transformation, unlike revenge, has no end point. It just keeps spreading, one phoenix at a time.